So we're going to go ahead and we're going to have, once again, LucyAnn Sanchez-Miramontez, our Justice of the Peace for District 5, and also the President of Texas Democratic Women of Central Texas, to introduce Vikki Goodwin.
Hello, hello. Can the people at the top of the hill hear me? All right. We want to make sure you can hear me. Again, I am proud to serve McLennan County as Justice of the Peace Precinct 5. I want to add that I am your only Hispanic female GPA ever in the history of McLennan County. Thank you for your votes. Thank you for your support. My constable, Fred Cantu, he had a couple of his deputies with him, so I want to say thank you, and please, you know, midterms are coming up, and that's our re-election. Remember our names. But I want to give a shout out. When I became president of TDW Central Texas, my first thought was exactly what we're seeing here. We got to get the people together. We, the people, have to unite. So I want to give a shout out to all the people that have welcomed me to their counties and have invited me to come and help unite us, turn the tide. Turn the tide, y'all. You know, the blue wave is still happening. Do not lose hope. Your presence here today shows that we are working and we are networking and we are building right here in Texas. I want to give a shout out to Coryell County Dems, Bosque County Dems, McLennan County Dems, and I met some new friends from Sun City, Georgetown. Thank you again so much for y'all all making the drive out. So it is my pleasure to introduce Vikki Goodwin. She is a, whoop it up, that's right. Vikki Goodwin. She is a Democratic state representative, serving Texas House District 47, which includes parts of western Travis County. She was first elected in 2018. She's a small business owner and a real estate broker. She has a background in public policy and state government. Ms. Goodwin has championed legislation to focus on public education, mental health, and community safety. This includes a Natalie Cox Act and Katie's Act. She holds degrees from the University of Texas and the LGB School of Public Affairs, and she lives in Austin. Again, give a big, warm welcome to Vikki Goodwin.
I may just take that out of there. Good afternoon, my friendly Texans. It is so good to see such a large crowd coming out because of your concern for our country and our state. So I'm a state representative, and I ran for the first time in 2018 after Trump was elected the first time. Y'all might remember there were a lot of us who came out of the woodwork saying, oh my God, what just happened? And guess what? There were 12 of us Democrats who flipped seats that cycle. That made such a huge difference in the Texas Legislature. My first session was the most collaborative session I've had so far. We called it the Kumbaya session. We actually got some things done. We actually collaborated. We actually cooperated. It was a bipartisan session. Since then, it's gone downhill. You know, 2021, the next session was the elections session. I don't know if y'all remember the Democrats who fled the state, went to Washington, D.C. For 30 days, I was one of them. You know, we tried as hard as we could to stop the election bills that would make it harder for people to vote. We couldn't stay in Washington, D.C. forever. And so when we came back, they rammed those bills down our throats. They ran over us. But you know what? We are smart and strategic. There was one bill that made it harder to vote by mail. Now you have to put a number on the back of the envelope. But I said, you know what? That's a bad bill. We can't kill it. We don't have the numbers. But what we can do is we can amend it. And so guess what I added to that? Now, if you are pregnant and you're about to have a baby just before or just after the election, you can vote by mail. That was my amendment. I know, kind of a small thing, but every little bit matters. And when y'all show up at the Capitol, it matters. I have people all the time saying, does it make a difference when we come to the Capitol, when we tell our story? And I say, absolutely, positively, it does. So last session, I did get Cotty's Act passed. It was a drowning prevention bill. That took 2 sessions to get passed. I also got Natalia Cox Act, which is a violence prevention act, passed. So my 3rd session wasn't altogether a loss. It was not too bad. This, my 4th session, is horrible. It's not going so good, y'all. You know, vouchers, which is the governor and lieutenant governor's #1 priority, will take $1 billion away from our public schools and send it to private schools, and it's wrong. And I know if Representative James Tallarico was here today, that's what he would be telling you about, how hard he and Representative Gina Hinojosa and others, Representative John Bryant on the Public Education Committee, have worked so hard to stop that bill. And when it became evident after the governor spent millions of dollars in the Republican primaries against his own party members, it became evident this was going to be really, really tough to keep from passing. So we thought about how can we make it less bad. So ultimately, we were hearing from people all over the state, including Republicans, including independents, Democrats too, who do not want vouchers. They don't want public dollars going to private schools and defunding our beloved public schools, which are the backbone of so many communities, right? We heard from them and we said, you know what? If you think, Governor, this is such a popular issue, let's put it up to a vote of the people. We had that amendment. We had that amendment and we worked hard behind the scenes to get the necessary Republican votes. But then you know what? The governor says he has line item veto power for the budget. So you member, your park that you want that's in the budget, I can line item veto that if you don't vote for my bill. That museum you want, that library, that park, whatever, the water project you want in your district will be zeroed out if you don't vote for my voucher bill. That's the power the governor has, and it's too much power. But we still had enough Republicans up until the day of, and guess what the governor did? He reached out to President Trump. President Trump called the Republican caucus that morning and he told them, you vote for that voucher bill with no amendments or you're not coming back. And so guess what? They folded. They folded and we didn't get that amendment added on. And you know what? Why would that hurt anything? Why? Why not put it up to a vote of the people if you're so sure this is what Texans want? Because they know it's not what Texans want. So obviously there are a lot of other issues. This session being my 4th, I used my seniority to get on the Appropriations Committee. And you know what? They are not just trying to defund K through 12. They are trying to defund our universities. So in the hearings, I kept hearing university after university president coming up and telling us, please don't take away our institutional enhancement funding. Since it's my first term on appropriations, I asked, what are they talking about? Well, guess what? The governor sent a letter to these universities saying, you still have too much DEI, and we are going to take away your funding. I have something to tell the governor. We live in a pretty diverse state. And you know what? When you support people from all backgrounds and you help those who haven't had the same opportunity, it just makes the state more successful. Why in the world would you take money away from successful universities? But it's not just Texas. It is Trump and Musk cutting funding for research. Research that has led to cures for cancer. Research that has led to medication that is very necessary for people with all kinds of illnesses. And guess what? Now that that research is being cut, will we find a cure for ALS, for MS, for all the different diseases that we have these days? Not good. So, being a realtor, one of my focuses is on housing affordability. Is that an issue here? So I have a couple of bills that I think would be helpful. One is the Fair Rent Incentive Act. So if a landlord is charging fair market rent, which is determined by HUD, the Housing and Urban Department, which you can find that number online based on number of bedrooms, based on zip code, based on the idea that you should not be spending more than 40% of your income on rent and utilities, then they would have an assessment cap on their property taxes, only if they're charging fair market rent. That would have downward pressure on rent prices. It would allow renters to be able to not spend all of their money on rent, to save, and one day be able to buy a home. Isn't that the American dream? I have another bill. It's the Homes for Heroes. This is a program that exists in Texas, but it's very underutilized. It's meant to help our first responders, our mental health workers, to be able to get lower interest rate loans and a little bit of help with their down payment. It's meant to help more people get into homes. Doesn't that sound like a great program? Simple bill, let's just expand who qualifies. That bill and my Fair Rent Incentive Act are languishing in committee, but guess what? We did already pass a sales tax exemption on exotic game, because that'll help a lot of people, right? And we also said we are not going to tax people who are making money off stock trades in Texas. What are we doing in the Texas Legislature? It's not great. It's not great. And I heard Cecile Richards' name brought up earlier. We tried to do a memorial resolution, a memorial recognition in her honor, right? Don't we try to honor the dead who've done a lifetime of work to help people? The Republicans wouldn't let us do that. So there's not a lot of tools in our toolbox as Democrats when there's 62 of us and 88 Republicans. So sometimes we do have to pull out tools that we really don't necessarily want to have to use, but that's what we have. And one of them is joint resolutions need 100 votes. They are constitutional amendments. They don't have enough votes without us helping them out on those, right? And there's some things they want to do with some joint resolutions. And so last week, we white lighted. It was a decent resolution. It's something we would have normally said yes to, giving a property tax exemption for families who have kids who are Downs or autistic, who have disabilities, meaning they will always live at home. So, of course, who would disagree with helping those families out? But we white lighted it. We were present, not voting, so they wouldn't get their 100 votes. And boy, did that make them mad. So guess what? The next day, instead of being, let's think about what policy is going to help the citizens of Texas. Like, that's what we ought to be doing as servant leaders in the Texas House. What are the policies that will make people's lives better? No, instead, it's all based on retribution. So after we white-lighted their bill, they killed every single Democratic bill on the local and consent calendar yesterday, Friday. I mean, so what are we going to do? We killed every Republican bill on the local and consent calendar. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the Texas Legislature. I just wanted to give y'all a little taste of what it's like in the Texas Legislature. And I do a lot of thinking. I think all the time, how can I help the people in this state? How can I help my constituents? How can I make people's lives better? I've been thinking a lot, and sometimes I think out loud. I think we have the worst lieutenant governor in the country. And I think, man, somebody has got to run against Dan Patrick for lieutenant governor. And sometimes I think, well, maybe I will do that. Y'all are wonderful, and you give me hope, and I love you, and y'all have a wonderful day.